Alright everyone, this is just tacitly about the change your vote sort of sub-movement that we're seeing crop up, because in a lot of states in the United States, if you voted early, you have the option actually to change your vote thereafter as long as it's before election day. And of course we got several days to go before that's the case. What I would do is appeal to people who may have voted for Joe Biden because they're like, well, lesser of two evils or whatever. Well, we now know that he was working with a foreign Chinese spy chief. We know that he explicitly, the allegation by multiple individuals, is that he took money from foreign states, using his son, Hunter Biden, as a middleman. We've got all sorts of other things that we could talk about, but it's old hat. The fact that his Senate records, that he's running on being such a long-term great politician who did so many wonderful things but never wants to discuss any of them or talk about the internal records that are sitting in the University of Delaware, to the point where he got smacked down by the National Archives. Looking at the preponderance of things, I would say that there's enough evidence of systemic corruption there. So that certainly there have got to be some voters that are like, well, I cast my vote for Biden 2 weeks ago, but this takes the cake. You can probably change your vote. And it's become sort of a thing, along with who built the cages, rhetorically asking that question anytime the children in cages bullshit is brought up. Well, who built them? It was Obama. The Obama-Biden administration created those cages in the first place. They were already interning children in them. The idea that there's some major difference because of the fact that the 500 and some odd kids that keep getting mentioned by like Elon Omar and Biden, the fact is they could have been brought across by human smugglers, and if you don't know for sure who the parents are and you release the kids into the random custody of someone who comes along claiming to be their uncle, that leaves the United States legally culpable. And what happens to those children? If they're going to be in the country, illegally, but as a minor, you're responsible for them to some capacity. Well, you can't just give them to slavers and then they disappear and you're like, these same people would be complaining if Trump had let these children go, because then there'd be a huge scandal, and it'd be a proper one, by the way. Trump's ICE gives kids away to people who enslaved them on the sex trade market or something. I would say this, though. It's a responsibility of all reasonable, rational citizens at this point to, at the very least, not support Joe Biden. He's completely crooked, completely corrupt, openly proclaims he wants to start a depression, although he doesn't use those words, has repeatedly refused to flesh out his platform. While I decided long ago I couldn't support him, I can sort of understand, because of the propaganda about Orange Man and the sky falling, and because we didn't know about the Hunter Biden laptop thing until a week ago, I can understand why some people, at least, like in a haphazard way, may have cast a vote for Joe Biden. You got to realize that only a few tens of thousands of voters in a couple of vulnerable states, Michigan, you can change your vote, by the way, I believe Pennsylvania too, are going to swing potentially the election. This election is almost impossible to even predict at this point, because to see Trump winning, I have to rely upon systemically unreasonable polling totals, which I believe, and then I have to take into account the possibility of rigging, which I think is very much going on. I think there will be hundreds of thousands of phony ballots in certain states that are coming through. Trump needs overwhelming superiority in turnout to win the election. I think he probably will gain that. The enthusiasm gap is considerable, far larger than 2016. It was a 2.2 point swing. But you can help out. If you're one of those people who voted for Biden and then upon further consideration, you're like, oops, that probably wasn't the greatest idea in the world. Shit, I basically just voted for Beijing. You can probably change your vote. In fact, I think most Americans are privy to that ability. I think most states allow you to retroactively change it now. As to what hoops you might have to go through to do that, I'm not 100% sure. I honestly don't know. I don't know if Vermont's actually one of the states that'll allow you to change your ballot. And if you mailed it in, like there were some shenanigans in Oregon and Washington State where the site that was for voter registration, you could in theory invalidate a ballot for someone else if you knew their name and birthday, which is like really wonky. 4chan was having fun with that. I decided not to actually report on it, and the websites, I think they've sewn up the loose ends, because I didn't want anyone to accidentally commit voter fraud. But some people were claiming that they went into the system and put in their own name and date, and yes, indeed, they successfully meddled around with things, and you could see like a person's potentially private information Like you could literally dox someone just because they're registered to vote in the Pacific Northwest, and it was a big joke, and it was really funny. But again, I didn't want, voter fraud in my name or something. Whoops, I accidentally put in an R instead of an S, and now I'm a felon. Well, that could be a problem, and I need my subscribers to be out of jail so that they can keep watching my content. Just a half joke there. But no, you should change your vote if you voted for Biden. You can be forgiven. You can be redeemed. You made a mistake. Everyone does. I make mistakes too. I remember the time that I shaved my hair all off, and I tried to give myself a haircut, but I did it wrong. This is way back before I think any of the videos on my YouTube are up. Thankfully, there's no footage of this in the public square. I butched my hair off, but I did it totally wrong. It was terrible. In retrospect, if I had just tied it up in a ponytail and done like a one-snip thing, it would have been okay, I guess. But since it was flawed and I literally didn't have money to go to the hair salon, and I'm so socially awkward, I'm not going to ask someone else to give me a fucking haircut, and I'd probably have to pay them too. I'd feel like I owed them. I just took an electric razor and I shaved it all off billiard ball style. You wouldn't have even recognized me. I looked like a cult member or something. And keep in mind, before this I'd had long hair, because I was trying to get a job, and I was looking at maybe like a security guard position or something, because there were some availabilities, and I'm like, well, they're not going to hire a hippie. That's not going to happen, but they might hire someone who looks like, maybe they've got leukemia or something. And so I shaved my head off. And it was a mistake. If I had known more, if I had Googled the process a bit more, I could have had a reasonable haircut. It would have been low budget, but it wouldn't have been all uneven and fucked up and required me being bald. Everyone makes mistakes. Yes, even yours truly. Sometimes you forgot to leave the spoon in the cup. You can't clank along. It's a huge problem. You planted the wrong plants next to each other. One of them got some aphids or rot or something on it, and it metastasized and wiped the whole bed out before you could destroy the contagion. Or you voted for Joe Biden, and then you realized he's in the pocket of Beijing in the most literal sense, with the wonkiest shit at that moment going on. Tucker Carlson coming out saying, "Whoa, yeah, the incriminating documents have disappeared. They didn't Epstein themselves." That's about all. Peace out.